Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Miranda. For today's video, I'm so excited. I'm going to be sharing another painting process, but I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I create my Tropical Oasis paintings using gouache paint. I have gotten so many requests, so many questions. How do I do this? How do I paint these types of paintings? This is what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. So I'm really looking forward to it. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this painting process. So we are going to dive right into this, literally, because it's a water painting. So we're literally just going to get into it, guys. And I just want to start by giving a little backstory to this painting. So I created my first version of this painting back in 2023. I used the same reference photo as I'm using here now, but I literally sold that painting in like an hour. So I created that one back in 2023, and that's when I first started creating all of these types of water scenes. I mean, as you can see, I have one there on the left that I've created as well. There's one in the background, like a smaller one behind this painting. So this was the first water scene that I made back in 2023 that kind of led into this style that I've kind of created for myself of doing these gouache water paintings. So I just wanted to give that kind of backstory. And since it sold so quickly, as I mentioned, I wanted to create a version for myself that like I could keep and enjoy. I mean, if it does sell, that's great, but I wanted a bigger version just so I could enjoy that for a little while. And I just want to kind of let you guys know some of my tips for how to use gouache paint to create water scenes. So as you can see from this painting so far, I've gone in and I really dilute my first layer of gouache paint with a lot of water. I like to make it as diluted as possible to really create that first sketch. So for anyone that's never really used gouache paint before, it dries extremely quickly. It's a layering process. It's not like oil paint at all. It's a mixture of acrylic and watercolor, but it dries very fast, like within a couple of minutes. So it's a layering process. So I go from the most diluted, watered down color from my background, and then as I'm building my layers, I will dilute it less and use the more saturated version of the paint. So I've gone ahead and sketched my first little bit of this painting, and now I'm going to be going in and detailing a little bit more, specifically in the background first. I'm working on this section here that's next to the waterfall, as well as the trees in the distance and the light rays that are pouring through those trees, and working on the shadows as well on the water. And I'm using my Holbein acrylic wash paint for this painting. You can use any kind of paint that you want, but Holbein is an amazing company because they make so many colors. You will not, I guarantee, find any other paint brand that makes gouache paint that has the range of color that Holbein has. They have a set that has like 100, I think, in something paints in it, or close to 100, which is insane. Like I have the 38 color set, so that's what I used for this painting. And I used the colors that are very turquoisey, green tones, a lot of tones like that. So in the description, I'll have the colors that I used from my Holbein gouache set if you're wanting to know exactly what colors I used for this painting. I'm also using a variety of brushes. Some of the brushes that I love to use with gouache paint are the Princeton Aqua Elite brushes. I use those with gouache paint as well as acrylic paint. I just love those brushes in general. Right now, I'm also using a brush from Winsor & Newton. It's a Cotman brush. So there's a lot of different brushes that you can use. I mean, it's really up to you, but ones with synthetic bristles are very good for using with gouache paint because they don't really absorb the paint as much as brushes that are made with actual natural fibers. Now we're moving on a little bit more to actually detailing our water. So you can see I'm building the shadows in the waterfall. I'm using my fan brush here to create that motion of water that you see going down in the waterfall. I have my reference photo on the right side on my iPad, so that's kind of how I look and see what I'm painting and while I'm painting it. But as I mentioned, gouache is a layering process. I'm going to be continuing to layer as we just go along in this painting. It's going to be layer after layer, and I'm going to keep building detail, building contrast and highlights as we go. What I really love to focus on with gouache paintings is creating as much light and contrast as possible. I really love to work on the light element. Like, I mean, as you can see from this painting, there's literally light rays pouring in from the trees onto the water. I mean, this is one of those photos. When I first saw it, I was like, I just want to jump into this. Like, I literally want to jump into this and swim around. So that's literally how I kind of started doing this. And I just love painting scenes like this. And it did take me, like I said, several sessions to do this painting. I sped it up just so that it would be a little bit more easy for you guys to watch, in the sense of you can just listen to me explaining the process in a more of a faster pace instead of watching like a literal 4-hour video. But now we're just going in and I'm detailing a little bit more in the background, using smaller brushes as we get closer to the detailing part of the painting. Like when we first start the painting, I will use a bigger brush, and then as we get closer to doing more details and fine tuning, that's when I start to use smaller brushes and working on more of the details. Another thing as well is that I always work on the background first, and then I move to the front of the painting as we're going. So I'm focusing more right now on working on just the background, and then I'm going to be finishing the painting by working on the frontmost parts of it. And now as well, like I said, we're going in with more of a less diluted version of the paint as well. And I also like to frame these water scenes. Like, I like to leave a nice white border around it and really just kind of not be too specific with the borders of it. I kind of like let the leaves flow off the edge, let the water flow off the front. I think that really just adds to like the dimension and literally looks like you could just jump right into it. So I'm just going to keep building my depth here. And like I said, it's a layering process. It's going to take a minute to build certain levels of shadows and contrast with gouache paints, because you do need to let it dry and continuing to build the layers as we go. But as you can see as well, I just want to mention any of the parts in this painting that I want to be extremely highlighted, I'm not going to go over with like any paint. I'm really leaving that white space to be that highlight. That's something that's very important as well. You don't want to put any dark color behind a bright color that you're trying to put down. It will really muddy that vibrant color, especially with certain colors like this, very bright turquoisey emerald colors. Anything that's bright and vibrant, even pastels, you definitely want to keep that light and not muddy it with any dark colors in the background. We're working now on really building that dimension in the water. I mean, this is one of those paintings, like I said, that I just want it to be dreamy. I want everyone to just feel like they want to swim in this little tropical oasis. That's literally what this painting is titled, because that is what this is to me. And so many of people, I mean, have really responded well to this type of painting. So, I mean, and it's the perfect season. It's the season to be painting stuff like this. I mean, I did do this painting a couple months ago, but you know. And a lot of the brushes that I'm using are from the Princeton Aqua Elite collection. Like, most of the brushes that I use for my gouache paintings are from that collection. They just really work nicely with gouache paint. They're wonderful. I'm really working on building the dimension now on this little cliff kind of side where the waterfall is pouring out of. I really want to be able to tell like where the sun rays are hitting this spot and where the shadows are coming from the trees on the upper part. Not that you can see that part, but you want to be able to really tell, you know, where the light is coming from, and build those highlights as we go along. And now really going back in and building more shadows in our waterfall. So, I mean, you guys can really see the layering process that goes into this type of painting. I mean, when you think about, if you just literally go back to the start of this painting and you come to it now, I mean, there's been so many layers after layer after layer that we've been putting. That's really what gouache paint is. It's a layering process. Um, it's like you can do a gouache painting in like one layer, but if you're really wanting to build a lot of dimension and a lot of detail and be as realistic, it's going to take a few layers for sure to get that effect that you're wanting. I'm working now on creating that water at the bottom of the waterfall, making it look as flowy and like it's, you know, when it's hitting the ground, it's flowing back up and it's misty. You know, I'm trying to get all those effects in this painting that we can with the water. And this is the biggest version of a water painting like this that I've done. This was the biggest one that I've ever done. It is I mean, I'm loving how it's looking. It's so nice. And you can see like how it's really like a lot of just detailing and building the color over time and building that vibrancy with layers. And then as we get closer to working on the front part of the water, I'm using bigger brush strokes, bigger brushes. You want to, you know, really have that realistic look in the sense of the closer the water is to us in the front, you know, the bigger the waves are going to be, the rocks on the bottom. And as we're moving towards further away, towards the foresty section, the waves get smaller. Um, as it's not as detailed with the ripples. So, you know, you always want to keep these things in effect. You want to know that, especially with water, it's all about movement and keeping that movement in flow in the painting and in the technique that you're using with the gouache paint. And now I'm going back in and we're really going to lighten up some of these parts here and build the shadows as well as much as we can. I choose to make my painting a little bit more of a like turquoisey color versus the reference photos, almost like a little bit more yellowy and green. But I really love that like turquoise vibrant color that you see like almost in like Mexico or there's lots of beautiful places like in the Bahamas that have such beautiful water. That's like almost the look that I'm going for. But as you can see now, we're really getting to a point where it's looking way more realistic than it was in the beginning. I'm working on really trying to emphasize the kind of the stuff that's on the bottom of the water, because this is like clear water where you can see the things on the bottom. And then also working on making as much depth as we can with the little highlights and the ripples on top of the water. All of that's very important in creating that effect, that realistic effect when it comes to painting water. And now I'm really going in and adding like my final details here and there, adding a little bit of green on the side of the ledge of the waterfall, continuing to build up my little light rays and ripples where the sun is shining through the trees, adding a little more to my waterfall, just really going around and looking at the painting and seeing, you know, what do I want to add? What do I think will help create more of a realistic look? See, with this painting, I'm really going for realism. Sometimes I do more of impressionist style. I do focus a lot on realism, but with these paintings, I'm really going for as realistic as possible. So that's why it takes a lot of time, a lot of layers, a lot of building. Because with one layer, it won't be able, you just simply will not be able to have the depth that you're looking for if you're looking to do more of a realistic painting. But yeah, if there's any specific tips that I would say take away from this when it comes to gouache paint is one, dilute as much as you can first and then build up your paint as you go with your layers, and start with the most diluted in your background or in your first layer, and then build up the saturation of the color in the paint as you go. And remember that gouache paint dries very quickly. It's a layering process. You have to really do like lots of layers. It's not like oil paint. It's similar to acrylic, but you know, like I said, it dries very quickly, and you want to make sure that um, you're aware of that when you're doing it and you're using it, and that you build up those layers. And like I said, just you know, don't be afraid to take time with a painting. Like a painting can literally start off as a sketch, and then you can build it into like literally anything that you desire. It's really up to you how long you want to work on a painting, how much effort you want to put into it. But like I said, I have a very personal like kind of connection to these types of paintings. They just, you know, they really just make me feel a certain way. Like I love creating these paintings. They make my soul feel happy. So you know, I really like to express that with the amount of effort that I put into it and the detail, because I really love doing these paintings. So I hope that you guys liked watching this process, and we're literally getting to the very end here, just detailing. I'm going to be, you know, adding my signature in the corner, but just working on the little front area of our water here too, and really trying to make that look nice and flowy, add as much movement as possible, finish up any like shadows and highlights that we have on there. But put my little signature in the corner, and now here we are. I'm just adding a few more little highlights. I remember this was a couple of days later. I kind of just let it sit, and then I looked back and I was like, I'm just going to add a few more things here. So that's what I did. And this painting is literally still sitting on my easel, adding some more highlights there as well. And I'm going to get it framed soon, and I'm going to hang it in my studio, but I'm looking forward to that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this painting process and you enjoyed my little story behind it and helping you with some tips with gouache paint. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.